Hey, welcome back to It Is When It's Tarot, where sometimes when is tomorrow, apparently. And when it's not, then I guess it isn't. I don't know. Anyway, so I realized I'm going to link the first part of the live yesterday in the description of the video. Um, I unlisted it because, I literally when I was about to start, the internet went out. So, um, I was like, I just put it in the top of the description box. If people are interested or curious, you can go watch it. It was pretty ranty. It was just me talking about a lot of stuff, like I usually do on here, rambly. Yeah, so I'm gonna do what I did yesterday. We're gonna see if we can get some population in that first area today. It didn't happen yesterday. Also, two lives ago, um, I don't know. I feel like I want to clarify. When I was like, to me, it takes more ego to say like this is the word of the divine and this what God is saying rather than or the divine is saying rather than like this is what I'm saying, this is what I'm getting, blah blah blah, whatever. And I just wanted to say that there is no wrong approach to it, right? It's just different definitions maybe of what is ego or egoic, right? And so I don't look at anyone else that says like whatever as like, oh my gosh, they're so full of ego because like they claim that, it's whatever is right for the person. Right. That was pretty much it. Cool. So I'm gonna get right into it. I'm occupying this corner of the screen again, so you know what that means. I feel much more comfortable than being in the middle and like way up here. Anyway, yeah, I just realized we got a straggler. It's fine. It's not where I would prefer like one of these, but like it's literally anyway. I could just like put it up, but we'll let it be. Apparently, it wanted to be out today. So, boom, there we go. Again, that's what we had yesterday. I feel like I was about to get into something and then the live went out again. And I guess whenever that happens, I honor it. Excuse me, If it comes back, that's one thing. If it just enters buffer purgatory, then it's over. I don't know. I don't even know if I ended it yesterday. Yeah, I did. I did end it yesterday. Um, and I think that's it, right? Has anything changed? Not necessarily. I still don't. Again, I still feel the way that I've been feeling. And even when I did the like alchemy for me and the Ace of Swords with the Fool. Okay. The alchemy for me and the alchemy of the collective, and then the Patrick facing collective alchemy was the octopus, but it was about like letting go. Like I feel like the signs have been there. And there have been other times too when I haven't necessarily felt like I've had anything of import to contribute to a conversation, or it didn't feel like it was for me to say something, regardless of my habit of going live like extremely frequently. Um, there have been times when that's been the case. Yeah. Ooh, interesting. Was that the Ace of Swords? No, the Ace of Cups came out. This card did like a 360. The High Priestess, the Five of Pentacles in reverse, and the Ace of Cups. This is so interesting. Um, the old church song, bottom of the deck is the Hanged Man. So yeah, obviously. There's this energy of like, despite circumstances and events, despite the place that someone finds themselves in, someone still feels like connected to the divine. They still feel seen and loved by the divine. That's this Ace of Cups. And there's this higher knowing. It's a very like Job kind of energy, but not. Um, And it feels like more often than not, when we find ourselves in a Five of Pentacles space, of feeling like these are two people who are very much so in need outside of a church, a building, an organization, a place where they're supposed to be able to find shelter and warmth and compassion and love, but they're like outside in the cold. Usually, when we're in those situations, we kind of feel like we've been forgotten or abandoned by the divine. But this is very much so knowing that regardless of circumstances, like this is someone not feeling that way, right? Ace of Cups, regardless of that Five of Pentacles. And that's why I'm not surprised to see the Hanged Man at the bottom of the deck, both in terms of its different perspective, but also the different perspective because of its connection to the divine or a higher level of insight. But the old church song that came to my mind was God's Not Dead, He Is Still Alive. Right? I don't know. It's like, I don't know if that one has circulated the world, or if it's like certain communities where that is a thing, or if it's like, I feel like I've heard it in more than just one church though. So, but it's like that song comes to mind. And this is a knowing that, like, God isn't dead, He is still alive, regardless of what. Eight of Wands, it came out on its side though. Regardless of what circumstances may look like, or regardless of what may be happening in the world. So, the balcony gate door slidey thing is open. I don't know how well the outside is. Ooh, that was a decent shuffle. But it was getting a little warm in here, so I opened it. Eight of Wands again. Two of Pentacles, Hangman still at the bottom of the deck. Hangman still at the bottom of the deck. Two of Wands. Hangman still at the bottom of the deck. Knight of Wands. Hangman still at the bottom of the deck. Three of Pentacles. Hangman still at the bottom of the deck. And the Hierophant. Hangman still at the bottom of the deck. Regardless of all that. Oh my gosh. Hello. My number one fan has joined the chat. Gotta turn it off. I'm just playing. Well, have a good evening. I hope you have a good night over there. I guess I shouldn't be surprised that you're still awake, but it was good to see you too. We'll see. We'll see what's going on. Maybe I'll do another one, another shuffle. I'm kind of interested. Page of Pentacles. Hanged Man still at the bottom of the deck. Four of Cups. Four of Cups now at the bottom of the deck. So because the Four of Cups displaced the Hangman now, again, the Hangman is a connection. It can be more often than not. I mean, it could also be a period of like waiting, feeling suspended, nothing really happening. It can be a different perspective, but usually it's not usually. This time, especially, it feels like it's a waiting because of a knowing. It's a different perspective because of a knowing. It's because of someone's connection to the divine, again, that God's not dead. He is still alive, regardless of what the world seems like. The Hangman was there until, like, the Three of Pentacles, Page of Wands, Eight of Wands, Two of Pentacles, Two of Wands, all those cards came out. The Hangman was there until the divine one day offers this Ace of Cups. The Ace of Cups, right? That was with the Five of, until the thing, that knowing is made manifest. And now something changes. Now the Hangman isn't there just waiting, because now the Hangman is received, or is receiving, or is being presented. And the Emperor. The Emperor, after all of that, it gives me an energy. It's like a quiet power. This is also 4-4. There's an Aries that's born on 4-4. Yeah, I had to make sure April was Aries season. There's an Aries that's born on 4-4, and her birthday was a mystery. And I just guessed it. And she was like, "How did you know? Where did you find it? Did I tell you?" And I was like, "I didn't know until you confirmed that that's the date." She was like, "Oh no, I was just playing. I was testing you." I was like, "No, you weren't." Anyway, um, it's this emperor after all of this. It's that being in your power or having a position of advantage isn't always exercising power, right? The person that speaks the loudest or does the most or has the most externally isn't necessarily always like the one in charge or the one like that is winning the game, right? Sometimes it is most advantageous to do nothing and wait, to be still and wait, especially when you have that knowing. To have a knowing and then act against it is to almost invite frustration because your knowing is telling you one thing. Your impatience may be telling you something else. Your anxiety, your fear, your worry, your the bills are due, the stomach is rumbling, maybe saying something else. And of course, when that's the case, you got to do what you got to do. But this emperor is so comfortable in their power that they don't have to make grand gestures just to prove that they're still in charge. You know what I mean? Because if an emperor would have to do that, then it's like, well, you're not as in charge as you thought you were. You're not as empowered as you claim to be. Or you're not as like you should be comfortable being still in that time of stillness until that Four of Cups comes. Or until that Ace of Cups is delivered, until what you know to be true, what your intuition and discernment is telling you is revealed. And again, it doesn't matter what happens in the world. Now the Emperor has taken the throne, taken its seat, Seven of Swords at the bottom of the deck. That reminds me, it was, I don't remember the cards. I feel like it was the Five of Swords, the Seven of Swords, and the King of Wands. There was an energy that was like trying to pull a king off of their throne, but the king was like, "This is beneath me." Just because I get challenged by whoever doesn't mean I have to rise to the occasion, doesn't mean I have to go out and make a demonstration of my power. Like, no, it's beneath my station, it's beneath me. This does not warrant a response from me, right? Type energy. And sometimes it's fine. It is what it is. All right. So let's do this because I don't want to be late for lunch today. You know, it's kind of a little bit of not a culture shock, but it's just a little bit of a difference when it's like when you're visiting people who are like, we eat our meals together. Right? Because like sometimes I eat with other people, sometimes I eat on my own. And it's not a huge thing, but it was like, you missed lunch yesterday. We're supposed to eat together. I'm like, okay, all right, whatever. Okay, so let's see. Let's see. Ooh, do I have to? I shouldn't have to run the whole thing again. Okay, all right. Let's go. Let's go. Okay, the ones that were empty yesterday are populated today. Love that. Air and water. We finally get the element of water. Oops. Oh, never mind. Okay. Okay, cool. All right. So let's see. Let's see what's up. We have the Three of Souls, the Six of Zones. So that's the Three of Water, Six of Air. No, Three of Fire. Sorry. Three of Fire, Six of Air, which is kind of the air and fire that we started with. Justice, which I believe it was justice and strength. Excuse me, Aquarius, the third eye, and air and water are the elements. Let's see. We actually saw, so we saw the Six of Swords yesterday with the Nine of Swords, which again, it was that, like, despite the sense of worry and anxiety and sleeplessness over how things are going to work out of the Nine of Swords, with the Six of Swords, things were still progressing. This, however, if I read this more as the Six of Zones rather than like the Six of Swords, zones predate realms. A zone is like a blueprint or a permit before the actual building is built, right? So there is a harmony. Now that song "Life is a Magic Thing," there's a simple harmony to life is the line in that song from Ferngully. Um, that comes to mind. The Six of Zones is like it's striking a balance in the. Oh man. Okay, give me 1 second. Uno momento, por favor. I don't have my other phone over here, so I just need to make sure that I'm not missing something important. Something importante. Nope. All right. Oof. Okay. All right. All right. I am back. So it's like of it's a feeling of understanding what's happening. And with the Three of Souls, there's this it's like it's this moment. It feels like energetically, or the closest thing to how I could see this sort of playing out is it's like, let's say there was a time of wandering, meandering, not like doing a lot of stuff, not necessarily knowing what your purpose in life is. This is the metaphor. This is the story. Not necessarily knowing what your purpose in life is, like thinking or feeling that you found it, because this isn't, it's the six and not the four. The four is like thinking or feeling that you found it, but with the Five of Swords, like, are the Five of Zones that comes after that, something happens that causes you to question, like, if your purpose or if what you thought was your purpose at a certain time is actually indeed your purpose. But now with the Six of Zones, whatever threw a wrench in the found knowing, or the machination of what was knowing, like, this goes, these two things fit together this way, this fits together another way, and now I have a pretty solid idea of like what's going on. But then something comes in that causes a reaction, or it's an outcome that, based on your knowing of how things work, is completely unexpected, which lets you know that you don't know everything, or you don't know all that you thought you knew. But with the Six of Zones, it's like updating the model. It's accounting for, like, there has been an expansion of one's knowledge or wisdom that can account for what was previously unaccountable, or previously unaccounted for. Now, this isn't necessarily a complete understanding, right? Because it's not the end. There's the 7, 8, 9, and then you have the court after. But it's this moment of like now sort of seeing how all of the things fit together. And with the Three of Souls, there's like this, there's the knowing of like the situation, and then the Three of Souls is this energy of like, I know what I'm supposed to do within all of this. So that's why it almost like it would read as like someone finding their purpose. Now, Justice and Aquarius are two interesting energies. I actually feel like, honestly, more often than not, I feel like Aquarius would be closer to the energy of justice than Libra. I mean, outside of the iconography of Libra being the scales and like not Hathor, Ma'at holding the scales of Anubis in Egyptian mythology, like the dead, their souls are weighed against the feather. Um, and because, you even see, I feel like depictions of like statuettes of justice or whatever, and she's holding the scales. But to me, honestly, it seems like more often than not more often than not, sometimes it feels like Aquarius is closer tied to justice energy because Aquarius has a scope that is bigger than just themselves. And when it comes to true justice, divine justice, major arcana justice, it is not centered on one's own life and perspective and biases and experiences. So maybe like Aquarius would be the higher octave of justice if that were a thing. Um, and then with the third eye here, this is actually interesting. I mean, it informs a lot of stuff in terms of the air and water. So I was thinking about how water didn't make an appearance yesterday. And then I thought of the tria prima, the three prime materials of the mind, the body, and the soul being air, earth, and fire, right? So water, there's an element that's not a part of the tria prima. And that could be like the thing that everything descends from, right? Just like the one became two, became hundreds, became thousands, became millions, became billions and trillions and quadrillions and quintillions, if that's how you say that, and sextillions and septillions and octillions and nonillions and decillions. Is that how the numbering goes? I don't know. Um, but yeah, the element of water was missing. And there's this fluidity. There is a certain fluidity that air and water share. But again, I feel like the air and water and the elements here sort of adds to that feeling of understanding, feeling that we understand, okay, like this is the bigger picture. And not only is this the bigger picture, but like this is my sort of role in all of that. And it's interesting because of how justice came up yesterday as like, this is what the earth needs. This is something that's going to counteract a lot of the toxicity that's going on. Like, this is the earth's immune response. The earth's immune response within whatever population is to introduce something that will balance it or manage it. Now, there are several ways to do that, but if you plan on keeping a species sort of active, right, then the best way would be to, especially in people, have someone not course correct, not lead people to the right path, but it would be to have someone or people, somebody's to maybe ask questions that have never been asked, to raise questions that maybe we've never considered, to not necessarily give us answers because we still have free will and we still have to make the choice. If anything has proven anything, it's that you can't force people to have a change of heart and you can't force people to be better than who and what they are. You can create environments and situations where they suppress or where they pretend or where they act like, but as soon as the opportunity to express their truth is there, you will see what the truth has been all along, right? That's why it's important for us to make our own choices and decisions, especially as people with free will and stuff. Um, but so the immune response could be to have someone that really, or something that really puts people in a position to make their choices and decisions. Now, the most beneficial would be like empowered choices and decisions, informed choices and decisions, but empowered or not, we make choices and decisions. Informed or not, we make choices and decisions, and they have impacts on our lives and the lives of other people. Um, and in the greater scheme of what justice is or what justice would be, maybe it's that, right? It's these choices and decisions that we now actively make rather than inactively making choices. Like, there can be biases and judgments that we hold, and they can be the reason why we make choices and decisions. But it's like there's the difference between like actively making a choice and decision based on a bias and not even taking the time to consciously make that choice. You know what I mean? Where it just like happens, where it's more like habitual, right? There's a difference between like doing something out of habit and like making the conscious choice to do that thing. Regardless of what the outcome is, it's just the conscious choice and decision that we make, right? And then whatever consequences and repercussions from that active choice, it's almost like doubly sort of enforced or doubly whatever. Almost maybe. But the justice, again, the justice in this case is us being the ones that sort of determine what our lives and what our future is going to be. And that's where that Aquarius energy comes in. Aquarius more so feeling like the future, but the future in a very like grounded and real way, in a way that is so tied to the choices, decisions, actions, and inactions of today, rather than like in 10 years, there's going to be this thing that happens that completely changes the way that we approach whatever or do life. Like something is going to be completely revolutionized out of the blue, and there's going to be this boom, right? So the third eye is the perspective of the six of zones. And also, that I feel like that's why the third eye is here on the D8 and not on the D6, because there's some kind of action here, especially with that three of souls. It's active, it's catalytic, it's not inactive, it's not inert. I don't know how else to say that or communicate it. But regardless of the future that we go to, march to, end up in, it is going to be a result of our choices and decisions. And again, like justice is that choice and decision not being made for us. Cool. Should I? Yeah, why not? It's 11:12. I'll probably leave this one here. The Empress and the Emperor. The Empress at the cut, the Emperor still at the bottom of the deck. Love to see it. Almost energetically though, because they're both sitting on their throne. It feels like that moment where a parent allows a child to make their own choices and decisions. And it's like it's very hands off. I don't know at what age or at what point in their development this happens. I personally don't have any kids of my own yet, but who knows? I was going to say, like, thankfully, I don't have any kids. I mean, honestly, with me being where I am in life, I'm glad to not have the extra pressure of like, okay, I got to support these other people. They're depending on me. Not yet, at the very least. Um, I don't know at what age or at what point in one's development a parent, and I guess it also depends. It depends on the child. It depends on the type of parent. Um, but with the emperor and the empress both sitting on their thrones, it almost again emphasizes this point of like it's up to the child to make choices and decisions now that will impact and influence the rest of their lives, right? Um, there are children who set themselves up for success, encouraged by their parents or not. Like, oh, I started learning coding when I was 3 years old, and now I'm 15 with this $1 billion business. Or when I was 15, I did this thing, and then my life took a turn, and like I got mixed up in the wrong crowd, and this happened, and that happened, and then I experienced this whole different side of life. And now, because of all of that, my prospects in terms of like whatever are different. And it's all because of things that I did when I was 15, and because the legal system is the legal system, whatever, which is different than like because of things I didn't do, right? I was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and whatever. It's completely different. Emperor is still at the bottom of the deck. But yeah, the emperor and the empress kind of sort of are having that energy of letting their child or their children become their own people, because they know that they can't make it's not that they can't make all of the choices and decisions for their child, because there are some parents who do well into a child's adult years. um but it's almost like an understanding that like they're not going to be there forever, and their kid is going to have to learn how to take care of themselves. Or it's a feeling of like wanting their child to be able to explore the world in a way that is truly like empowered and prepared and everything else, right? And it's not that they won't be there to help or support, but there are important choices and decisions. I'm going to look before and after the lovers. There are important choices and decisions that that child has to make, because their life is their own. I'm looking before and after the lovers because it's the card of choices and decisions. Justice, the dreamland, the star, and the world. Ace of Pentacles after the world, which is my like more earth card. But before justice is the Ten of Swords. Big oof. And then there's the star. Star is Aquarius. Justice is obviously justice. You could say that the world and the Ace of Pentacles, especially because the Ace of Pentacles is like the world to me, would be a third eye kind of energy. But anyway. Oh, interesting. Okay. Oof, interesting. Oh, look, there's the High Priestess again. The High Priestess is before the Five of Cups. We've seen the High Priestess with the Five of Pentacles in reverse, with that Ace of Cups behind her. The High Priestess is in between the Five of Wands and the Five of Cups, which is an interesting position for her to be in, to me. There's this VIIV, which is almost giving like 6-4 or like, and then 6 and 10 are here. Anyway, the lovers came out between the Five of Cups and the Wheel of Fortune. This is so interesting. Again, I feel like this is that like when the High Priestess was with the Five of Pentacles, this is a very similar energy. This is that like God's not dead, he's still alive energy. This is that be patient and wait, or be still and wait energy. But again, like even in those times and even in those moments, we make choices and decisions based upon what we know, what we believe, and the situation and circumstance we find ourselves in. This choice and decision that we're making, on one side of it is the Five of Cups. The Five of Cups is a card of grief, loss, disappointment, stuff like that. Things that we've invested blood, sweat, and tears, time, energy, money into that didn't work out. And maybe some of the things that did, but the things that have worked is like it's not occupying enough of our attention to not to make a difference. But it's like sometimes when things are going wrong, it's a lot easier to just sink into all of the things that we feel like aren't panning out or working out, rather than to focus on the things that are. Right. But on the other side of this choice and decision is the Wheel of Fortune. And again, because of all the clouds on this wheel, there is no logical, it feels like there is no logical tie or connection. There is no logical bridge connection to this thing, to things happening and changing, but it's your intuition's job to inform you of or make you aware of the things that are otherwise unknowable, right? Maybe job isn't the right word, but it is an aspect of the intuition to inform us of things that we would have no way of knowing. And so this kind of is like, is it a choice or decision based on the faith and knowing that we have, or is it a choice and decision based upon the circumstances that we're in, maybe temporarily, or the circumstances that we've experienced? Because it could be long-standing circumstance, but the duration of the circumstance doesn't matter when it comes to your intuition. When it comes to reasoning and logic and like being swayed on what we believe, it makes a whole lot of difference. If you've been in a certain situation for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, 10, 20, 30, 50 days, seconds, months, hours, whatever, then it's like there is nothing that has occurred that would make you believe this other thing could happen. But again, your intuition would have told you. That's why the high priestess is still here. So this kind of almost picks up on the whole bus stop situation, bus station yesterday. Like if you know that the bus is coming, but you don't get to the nearest stop or station, it isn't necessarily going to drive through your front door and pick you up. Right. If we don't do, and maybe it's because, again, it's that it feels like nothing is set in stone with this justice, Aquarius, with all of this energy here. It doesn't feel like anything is set in stone. It doesn't feel like a certain outcome is guaranteed. It reads more to me like we are being encouraged, empowered to giving the opportunity to make choices and decisions that of weight that cumulatively will determine which sort of trajectory we end up on. This almost reminds me of, it was a reading I did when I was still at the last place. I want to say maybe it was about a year ago. Maybe not. I want to say it was like April, May. But when I used the good tarot with whatever else, in the good tarot, the Queen of Air came out and she had the owl with her rather than the butterfly. Usually with the Queen of Swords, you'll see a butterfly and it symbolizes change and metamorphosis and stuff like that. But because it was the owl, it was more an energy of like using one's wisdom gained, knowledge that will mature into wisdom, or even intuition. The butterfly was tiny and it was on the Queen of Earth. And when it had a DC, because I like rolled dice, a DC of 17, and 17 was the star. The star again is Aquarius. Um, and like the DC was high. Maybe it was 15, but I think it was a DC of 17. When I rolled the dice, it didn't pass. The butterfly was so small. It's like the changes in the world, the positive changes, the changes that affirm the thing that our intuition is telling us, that our discernment is telling us, that the divine is telling us. Like it was so small in comparison to everything else. So I rolled to see if we would even notice it, and we didn't. Collectively, generally, you could notice those things in your own life. You are your own person with your own connection on everything. I'm just some dude, right? And so I was like, well, if we can't even like see these things in the real world, then how are we supposed to know that these changes are happening? And it was like your intuition. And I was like, oh, yeah, duh. Like that makes perfect sense. Your intuition is the one that notifies you of those things, your connection to the divine that we all have, regardless of how weak or strong we may feel it is. Your intuition is the thing that lets you know. And again, because of the clouds and this wheel of fortune, much like yesterday, there is so much uncertainty. This change comes seemingly out of the blue. But again, there are many choices and decisions that we are all making that have the power to impact not only our lives, but the lives of others. And so, what seems like it's out of the blue or what seems like it may be overnight could, in fact, be the result of tireless hours spent, right? It's like when I don't know anything about the entertainment industry, but for some reason, Chapel Roan comes to mind. I don't even know if I've listened to. I don't listen to a lot of music. I listen to the mostly the same songs that I listen to. I've been listening to for like a decade plus at this point. I listen to my Discover Weekly, and that's how my library grows. Back in the day, it was Pandora, but Pandora was again more than a decade ago. But it makes me think of Chapel Roan because like she's really big now. It seems like she came into the spotlight overnight, but there are people who have been fans of Chapel Roan for like years before she became famous, before she had her big break in the industry, before she was doing all that she's doing now. What happened for her didn't happen overnight, but most people didn't see all of what went into her becoming or her stepping onto that stage, right? We see something happen for someone else and we're like, oh my gosh, that came out of nowhere, that happened overnight. Like, but in reality, that's not always the case, right? Like these people, this person, whoever, made choices and decisions just like we make choices and decisions. They put in work just like we put in work, or we choose not to put in work. And again, like the Emperor is here at the bottom of the deck. Under the Emperor is the Ten of Wands. It doesn't matter how heavy this burden is. Under the Ten of Wands is the Three of Wands. This could be the burden of a future that we've yet to experience. Our faith, our discernment, our intuition is our vision. Like we're getting visions of things that we can barely even dream into being. The Emperor bears the weight of all of that. And the Emperor doesn't stand at the Nine of Wands and say, this is too hard, this is too difficult, I'm beat up, I quit. The Emperor doesn't sit at the Ten of Wands and go, this is too heavy, this isn't my burden to bear, I quit. The Emperor knows when it is their burden and when it is not their burden. And sometimes the Emperor will carry a burden that is not theirs for the sake of the vision, the dream, the goal, right? Regardless, the in between is less highlighted and elucidated and illuminated. Even the choice doesn't necessarily have a clear or correct answer. And different people are also motivated by different things. There are some people who are motivated to greatness because of loss, right? It's not to say that this Wheel of Fortune can't come despite the Five of Cups, grief, loss, despair, despite the Five of Pentacles, feeling left out or abandoned, or like the resources that you should have aren't there. That all of that could be part of this Ten of Wands. All of that could be a part of the Nine of Swords. All of that could be a part of, whatever. But again, the Emperor eventually, somehow, some way, makes those choices and decisions, overcomes it. And I guess with the Emperor and the Empress and even the High Priestess standing back, it is our time to overcome. The Five of Wands and the King of Wands is behind this Five of Wands. The King of Wands was the one that was not getting off of his throne just because some random whoever from wherever came and challenged him. This is the King of Wands that is full of enough healthy ego that he doesn't have to prove himself to anybody. They don't have to prove themselves to anybody. It's a weak ego. It's an inflated ego. It's an ego that is based upon nothing, that will be like triggered into doing all kinds of stuff. Right. I've not seen the movie, but it reminds me of a clip. There's an adult man who's like beating up children in like a boxing league or a karate league or something. And maybe one of the parents were like, "What are you doing? Like, this is for children." He's like, "Well, the rules say 8 and up. There is no upper limit on who can participate in this, and sometimes we need wins as human beings, as people who do our best and live life day to day to day to day. Sometimes we need a win, right? There's no shame in that. We are where we are, and we need what we need when we're there. Nobody's perfect except for whoever was or whatever was coming through yesterday. But even that energy may not necessarily be very, you know what I mean? Because there's always the risk or the chance of like maybe taking things too far. It's not to say that we don't need some kind of flexibility or fluidity. It's not to say that a hyper rigidity is necessarily always the way, right? But still, um, yeah, cool. I almost want to change it to one instead of two elements and just keep rolling until we get like just the element of water by itself. Even though the only element that we saw by itself yesterday was earth, it was air and fire, and then earth, and then air and earth, I think. And now air and water is here. I don't think we've seen air by itself. Air has always been paired with something else. And maybe that speaks to air being the thought, the mind, the intellect, how so many of our conclusions, so many of our beliefs are based upon things that we've experienced or witnessed. It's almost impossible to have a thought that's not influenced by something else, unless you include something like your intuition. Which isn't necessarily your intuition doesn't come to you based upon the your intuition doesn't come to you based upon the circumstances, situations, or workings past, especially experiences, patterns, habits. Now your intuition could illuminate things like that, but it's in the processing, it's in the making sense of the intuition that we color it with a lot of the context where we give it meaning. Sometimes that meaning is, and sometimes that meaning isn't. Again, maybe that plays a little bit into the discernment when it comes into your. It's discernment when it comes to your intuition. High Priestess, no, the Empress and the Three of Cups. Sorry, get a little tongue tied. The Hangman and the Empress. So yeah, we saw the Hangman with the Emperor. Now we see the Hangman. Well, we saw the Hangman with the Four of Cups. Yeah, the Hangman to the Four of Cups, Four of Cups to the Emperor. Now we see the Hangman with the Empress. To me, it's sort of just like validating that like the Emperor and the Empress isn't necessarily, they're more of in a supporting role than like making choices and decisions for their children. Mutable water, Pisces. Both of these are Pisces cards. What's this? Neptune, water, Neptune, Pisces, mutable water, Pisces. Pisces season is over. Happy Aries season. I'm kind of glad for the warmth, but I am not ready to sweat. It was like perfect yesterday. It was like low 60s. I was like, okay. It was like 17 Celsius. I was like, okay, I can do this. I had on like shorts and a t-shirt and my little hoodie, my Crocs. All right. It is basically lunchtime. I could get a final roll. We'll see. Yeah, sure. Why not? One more. Uno más. Ache or ache or. I think ache or. Wow. Eight of Souls with the initiative essences, third eye in the heart, solar plexus in the throat, and the element of earth. So again, the element of earth has emerged alone. The Eight of Souls is interesting because we saw the Eight of Wands earlier. I think we saw the Eight of Wands. The Eight of Wands was at the top of the deck when the Ace of Cups, the Five of Pentacles in reverse, and the High Priestess came out. I picked up the cards and the Eight of Wands was still on the table, and then at the cut, I saw the Eight of Wands again. The Eight of Souls is interesting, and the initiative essences. Third eye in the heart, solar plexus in the throat. Like, before I did this, I guess I've only randomized the number as I've gone live. I haven't used this offline, not randomized. Like I entered the number that came in before. It's interesting to see where what is missing. There hasn't been one live so far where there's like an entry in every single category. I also don't know if there has been a time where only one was left blank. I feel like it's always been at least two. Maybe not. Doesn't matter. Who knows? Um, the Eight of Souls with the initiative essences is interesting. We saw the third eye in this same space earlier, too. Right? The third eye and the heart here is interesting. There's almost this understanding of what we do in the world is a reflection of who we are. Right? Like the saying, God knows my heart comes to mind. The road to hell is paved with good intentions, kind of, not necessarily. It's almost like, again, with the way that we humanize justice or what justice means in the court of man. Um, it's easy for us to have an understanding of where we are situationally, emotionally, mentally, whatever, and for us to believe or know or believe that our actions aren't a true reflection of who we are, right? And sometimes that is the case, right? Let's not take the human factor out of it. It's living in life can be hard. It doesn't come, you could argue that it doesn't come with a guidebook. You can argue that it does come with a guidebook. And you could point to whatever text. Um, but like with the third eye and the heart here, it's almost this understanding that what we do is a reflection of us, regardless of the situations and circumstances that we find ourselves in. Right? It's almost like that saying opportunity makes a thief. Well, if all it takes is opportunity for someone to be a thief, you know what I mean? Like if all it takes is for someone to feel like there are no consequences to their actions, you get to see what they would really do. Right? Like that is the truth of that person. Or at least, yeah, I would argue that that's the truth of the person. Whatever you say in confidence, whatever you do when you don't think there are consequences, that's what you would like really do because you're doing it. especially if you're doing it because you know or believe there won't be any like consequence or repercussion, right? Now, the Eight of Souls and the Initiate of Essences is interesting. This is an energy, it feels like there's something that is deep within someone that they may not be aware of, but it's like it's coming to the light. This makes me think of the last role from yesterday, where it was like the one that became a multitude. And it was that I think it was the Wheel of Fortune again, actually. Or no, it was the Two of Cups, the Three of Pentacles, the King of Cups, Strength. Anyway, it makes me think of that in terms of like, and also what came out earlier in terms of like situations, that Six of Zones, Three of Souls energy, in terms of situations and circumstances, like almost leading someone to realize what their place is, what they're meant to do, or how they can be of help or benefit, or how they could take advantage. Because honestly, it's general, and there are all kinds of people in the world. Not everyone is interested in the well being of all, you know? But anyway, I mean, and even that, there is no necessary, regardless of how I tone it and phrase it, there's no necessary judgment. It just sort of like is what it is. Not every person is a good person. Not every person is a bad person. It is what it is. There are, and you can say, well, there is no good or bad when it comes to people. Um, But the Eight of Souls and the Initiate of Essences is something deep within someone that they may not have a full understanding and recognition of, that bubbles to the surface in the way of like, it's almost like someone who feels an urge or a push to do something. They don't yet know that this thing is going to become one of their primary motivators in life. They don't yet know how significant and important this thing is going to be to the core of that person, right? It's just like it's a strong, again, the highlight on the intuition today, but it's a strong emphasis, it's a strong pull to do something and then discovering, right, later, like, oh my gosh, this is like, it's come to define so much of who I am and what I believe and how I operate or whatever. And because this is the Eight of Souls, it's the process of like beginning to master something, right? So this Eight of Souls, Initiate of Essences could very well be the thing that you were put on earth to do. What you were put on earth not only to do, but also to like master, right? Now, the solar plexus in the throat is interesting. This solar plexus here, it feels like it's the function of the solar plexus where it's all about sustenance, right? What sustains you physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, like everything that you put into your body, how that is converted into a fuel to do something, the efficiency of it, right? Like if you put junk food into your body, like yes, it's loaded with sugar and all of these other things, but can your body like metabolize those sugars, or does that excess just sort of like sit and accumulate within the body, right? That in terms of efficiency, you could put super healthy stuff into your body, but if your body isn't breaking it down, then you're not necessarily getting those nutrients and vitamins distributed throughout your bloodstream. It could go in and come right out. I watched a documentary about the gut on Netflix a few days ago. I think I mentioned it yesterday. And it was interesting because they were like, and I never thought about this before, but they were like, the way that we approach calories, you could say that an apple is like 100 calories, which may be a lot for an apple, but for the sake of the metaphor or for the sake of the story, it's just like go with it. You could say that an apple is 100 calories, but not everyone's body interacts with that apple the same way. And it's like the way we approach it is like we all assume that we're getting the full 100 calories out of that apple. And that's not necessarily the case. Some people may get 50, some people get 75, some people get 99, 100. Some people, by some miracle, may get 125. Some people may get like 5, 2, 7, 12. It's not necessarily the same for everybody because we process things differently. And that element of sustenance, especially when it comes to providing the energy for us to do whatever we're doing, is what this solar plexus is feeling like. The throat here, maybe it's more of an energy of like parroting and mimicking. The throat is like really interesting here, um, because it almost feels like the reason why I say maybe it's parroting or mimicking, because it almost feels like it's more about listening than actively speaking. But because the throat is the throat and is associated with communication, that's what makes my low hanging fruit. It's about parroting, it's about mimicking. Whatever we hear, whatever our ears intake, whatever we've been fed, that's what we like say. And maybe that's why the solar plexus is here too. Like it's really important. It's also that function of sustenance of like what are we putting into our ears? What are we listening to? Especially in terms of like what are we putting out into the world? You know? Now how all of this works together, this feels like it's a migration to one's tribe, right? It feels like this. So like let's say that there's a call or there's a pull that comes from within, and we get a vague idea. Our intuition is speaking, our discernment is discerning. There's almost this realization of a need for someone to change the way that they move and navigate, for one, but also there may be things in their environment that don't support what it is that they're doing. So that's why the element of earth is coming up as this like migratory energy. Well, like let me go somewhere where the fruit are aplenty with like nutrients and vitamins and minerals that my body can process and like digest and break down. You take a tablet of 100 cc's of whatever, doesn't necessarily again mean, I feel like in that way we more understand it, right? I feel like there's an understanding that you're not necessarily getting every single unit of vitamin or mineral in that pill that you take, right? Your body has to digest it, and whatever you digest has to be taken in by the bloodstream somehow, right? But when it comes to food, I feel like, I mean, I feel like there's also the understanding of like some things people don't digest as well as other people. So maybe it's just me. Maybe it just blew my mind. And I was like, whoa, I never thought about that. Not everyone gets the same amount of calories from that apple because we don't all process it and break it down the same way. But anyway, the earth is migratory. It's like it's moving to an environment that supports whatever this action is, right? And maybe this is an understanding because, again, there isn't a knowing or an understanding of like the things that we do and the way that we show up in the world is a reflection of who we are. And if it's truly circumstances and situations that cause someone to react or respond in whatever way, this would be them finding or feeling the migratory pool, just like the geese used to know when it was time to fly south for the winter or north or whatever. I don't even know anymore because the geese are here year round. The birds be there in the middle of winter. The squirrels don't even sleep no more. The bears are still out. Hibernation, what's that? Um, but it's like it's this migratory, and I don't know. The migratory pool feels more like it's a conscious understanding rather than, I guess it could also be like a subconscious bias shift. Maybe someone's like diet is changing or their exercise routine regimen is changing. Maybe there are things that are changing in someone's life before they come into a full conscious awareness of it. And then it's like, oh, I haven't done this in a while because my body just hasn't felt like it, you know? So it's not to say that that can't happen or that can't be the case. Um, but there is a movement to find things that support the action or the things that we want to do in the world. But with the initiative essences, it's like it's the first lived in experience of doing this. Even at a soul level, if you know that this is what you're made for, with the initiative essences, it does come across as like the first time doing it or still being in the novice stages of doing it because it's not even the scholar yet, to eventually be the teacher or the sage. It could also be this energy because of the migratory energy. It could also be something that someone is used to doing, but maybe they're moving to an area, they're like operating in a new market, and so the way that they go about doing whatever it is that they do, maybe it'll change. Maybe there was an assumption that people over here have the same needs as the people did over there, and so there is this same approach, and then you find out, you discover that life is different over here, so the approach needs to suit life as it is lived, you know, which I guess could invite some kind of frustration, but anyway, it's fine. So I guess I'll get Six of Swords at the bottom of the deck. I didn't even see it. Again, that migratory energy. Six of Swords and Justice. Now, Justice, again, being that like the approach needs to suit the people, right? Six of Swords and the Seven of Swords. Interesting. The way I look at it, it's like this. The Seven of Swords is looking back at the Six of Swords. But, right, but when I show you, the Six of Swords is heading for the Seven of Swords. The way I see it, it's like there are things that are left behind. The six from the Eight of Swords, which is interesting. Um, there are these two swords that were left behind as someone made this Six of Swords journey, right? And this energy, the Seven of Swords, is taking from, I guess, there were seven swords that were left behind. So this was the 13 of Swords, the Death of Swords. Um, from the seven that were left behind, this person is taking five. It's not necessarily scavenger energy. This could be, again, like if someone moves from one area to another, from one department to another, from one company to another, especially like someone of value. That could be something as simple as, well, someone is now going to have to fill the void that you leave behind as you travel to do whatever, right? It feels like whatever is being taken with the Seven of Swords was already left behind anyway. And if it was left behind, the Six of Swords, like they have everything that they need. They've realized what is truly important to them. So anything left behind, regardless of how they feel about it being left behind, it's like it's almost fair game, I guess, because it's no longer in their possession, right? And maybe those Seven of Swords weren't supposed to stay there unused forever. So what does it matter if someone comes in to take five? Because it's the Seven of Swords, though, and because of the connotation of the Seven of Swords, it feels like that could be a feeling of us like losing out on something. It's like, well, it doesn't matter. Like, it's my trash, it's my garbage, it's my thing that I left behind. It's still mine. So it should just stay there and rot forever. Six of Wands, Six of Swords. The Six of Wands with this, it's like, again, almost like that King of Wands energy. Not necessarily too bothered to care, but 1 second. That's the lunch call. Ooh, lunch is in an hour. Let me see. Oof. Yeah. Things that we've left behind for whatever reason. With the Six of Wands, it does almost call back to the King of Wands, like too bothered to care. Like I left the Seven Swords with an understanding that something could be used. There is still something of value there. Take it. Take it and get whatever you can out of it. I'm moving on to something else. Right. Now, obviously, if we are talking about like intellectual property or something like that, that's a different beast, girl. I'm not legal counsel or what. It feels less maybe like in the realm of intellectual property and more in the realm of something else. But anyway, I have like half an hour until actually, yeah, wrapping this up. Okay. Let's get a final card from this for the interesting. The Empress came out. And the Six of Cups is at the bottom of the deck. We've seen the Six of Swords, the Six of Cups, and now the Six of Wands. There was also the VIIV of the Five of Cups, the Five of Wands, the High Priestess, and the Five of Cups. And then the Lovers was there, which is another six. Um, I'm looking at this river. Oh, that makes sense. Duh. The Six of Swords. I was like, the river in this High Priestess feels the. I called her the High Priestess again. Maybe because the Emperor was patient and waited with the Hanged Man until that Four of Cups, until the Ace of Cups was presented by the Divine. That wasn't an Ace of Cups from any random whoever. The hand in the cloud presented that Ace of Cups. The hand in the cloud presented the Ace of Cups. The animals were in the clouds and the Wheel of Fortune. Somebody somewhere knows something that we don't know, you don't know, I don't know. Your intuition is your way of knowing. Your discernment is your way of interpreting it. The river that they're following in the Six of Swords, it feels like it leads to this Empress. I was like, why am I focused on the river? And I was like, Six of Swords die. Again, with the Six of Wands that came after that Six of Swords, the Empress feels like it's further a reason why someone doesn't have to worry about what they left behind. Because where they're going is much more abundant than anything that they've experienced. And again, it's almost that like if someone can find something of benefit from whatever, that's fine. Because that area, that company, that team, that whatever, like still has a job, a purpose, a function. They still have like things to do. And even in our absence, whatever, like that shouldn't necessarily doom something or someone to whatever, right? Maybe it's fine. Um, but yeah, it feels like the river leads to this Empress. Oh, the High Priestess. So, like, the inaction of the Emperor was actually him being in his power. The Emperor can afford to wait. The Emperor can afford to go hungry. The Emperor can afford to be cold. The Emperor can afford to be in whatever season the Emperor is in to get to whatever season the Emperor is going to. And again, the intuition played a role and a part in both of them because the High Priestess again came out with the Five of Pentacles in reverse. That was the Ace of Cups. That was eventually received by the Four when the Four went from the Hangman to the Emperor. But it feels like, I don't know, something about the high priestess and this empress feels a little different. So maybe rather than this empress symbolizing a person, the empress symbolizes a place. The emperor is the person. The empress is the place that the emperor goes to. The empress is fertile and stands ready to receive the seed and to give birth to whatever happens as a exchange between the emperor and the empress. This is interesting. The empress is the personification of place here. And again, the place is wherever the emperor goes to sow that seed. Um, and obviously, it doesn't. Obviously, it doesn't have to be like literal, right? Especially if the empress is a place. But sowing the seeds of creativity, sowing the seeds of hard labor, sowing the seeds of whatever, right? Whatever the emperor chooses to engage in, whatever that Six of Swords, wherever it leads, and whatever that person with the Six of Wands chooses to invest their time, energy, and effort. I feel like there is a part, if there is an attachment to what was left behind, a part of it could be the Five of Cups that we saw in the very beginning. Not the very beginning, it was the Five of Pentacles in the very beginning, but the Five of Cups that we saw with the High Priestess before, in a way of like, I invested so much blood, sweat, tears, time, energy, effort into this thing. And like, now someone else comes in and they just get to benefit off of everything that I did, blah, 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 whatever. But it's like, if you're not there anymore, and especially depending on the situation, but if you're not there anymore or you decide to move on, doesn't necessarily mean that something should stay barren forever. Right? We all have our different journeys. We all grow and heal and evolve and change. We all have the capability to grow, heal, evolve, and change. We all make choices and decisions to do it or to not do it, regardless of what that looks like for us. And only we know for ourselves what that looks like. Right? But this empress stands ready to receive, acknowledge, recognize, appreciate the efforts of that emperor. And that's another thing that makes this so fertile. The Knight of Pentacles is behind the Six of Cups, and the Four of Wands is behind that yellow skies. Well, this it's blue here, but the ground is yellow, predominantly yellow cards. And then the Knight of Cups is behind that. So again, it's like now we're getting that like Virgo, Pisces, South Node, Virgo, North Node, Pisces energy. There's this Four of Wands marriage between Pisces, and then the Hierophant is behind that, which again is a card of can be marriage. The Four of Wands is also a card of marriage. There's this marriage between Pisces and Virgo in this North Node, South Node axis. It is the gift of Virgo. It's the light of Virgo that stands to support the weight of the dream of Pisces. Right? Because if the Piscean dream, in my mind, maybe Piscean bias because I'm a Pisces sun in Mercury, and my 12th house is huge. Anyway, it's fine. If Pisces, if the dream of Pisces is truly Piscean, it is probably unlike anything that they've at least experienced. It's unlike anything that currently is or have ever has been, maybe even beyond what has been conceptualized, dreamed, or imagined, which is why Neptune could be the planet of illusion, delusion, fantasy, and a whole bunch of other stuff. But Neptune is also associated with spirituality. Again, the central core theme being your intuition. So we don't have to allow the realism of Virgo's shadow to limit the dream of Pisces. We don't have to allow the perfectionism of Virgo's shadow to drive us into analysis paralysis or fret or fear over things that are happening. But the Piscean dream is going to need support. Because if realized, at the very least, it's going to change life, right? And if there is no support for that change, it's going to be short lived. It's going to be that really good dream that you have, and then you wake up at like the best part or whatever, right? It's going to be that fame, that success, that the one hit, whatever could be, if there is nothing to support it, right? Like the hundreds, if not thousands, of people that win lotteries all over the world just to eventually, maybe sometimes even be in a position worse off than before they won. Virgo is the plan that turns a lottery winner into like that keeps them in that higher bracket, assuming that the people who win the lottery, like assuming that amount of money like actually impacts their life, right? If a billionaire wins millions in the lottery, I don't know, more assets to whatever. But Virgo is the thing that keeps that person in that space of wealth and maybe even abundance. Because without Virgo, again, it's there for a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and then it's back to that harsh reality. But it's, again, it's like waking up to a life that can be challenging when you've just had the most beautiful dream. It can make the weight of the day even more crushing than it was before you had this other experience. Anyway, Pisces and Virgo working together to support this. Cool. So yeah, that's what I got. I hope you all have an amazing whatever. Whenever you see this, I hope you're acting in alignment to make all that you wish to experience your reality. I hope that whatever you need along your path, journey, and way you find. I'm not gonna say you'll see me tomorrow because you may not. Again, I was already feeling like it ain't necessary. Ooh, there's the Queen of Wands for the King of Wands that we saw earlier too. It doesn't necessarily feel like. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. Happy Aries season. Happy spring. I feel like maybe I should do something for Aries season, but did I do anything for Pisces season? I don't remember. Maybe I did. I think I did actually. Let's get a quick roll of these for Aries season. Why not? And then no! Oh no! Okay. Oh gosh. Oh gosh. Wow. I hope you have an amazing whatever. Whenever you see this, I hope you're acting in alignment to make all that you wish to experience your reality, and I hope that whatever you need along your path, anyway you find. And until next time, yeah, keep well, or as well as you can.